Hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, I'm back to you. Wow. What happened yesterday? Darn Facebook. Welcome to our program. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, live with what we call our micro talk show, right? The micro talk show? The micro talk show of the AAPI or the AAXs. A naming convention to include all of us. But look, and I mean this is for everyone. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same gong closet. We are. We really are. And I know I'm looking at myself now because I was looking at a tape, reviewing the tape of the program yesterday. And I was saying, my God, I'm squinting. I'm looking like I'm a Mr. Magoo or something. Now I got to open my eyes. Okay, look, see, I have eyes. So here we are. We're here, like I said, at 2 p.m. Pacific Live, and you're looking at your watch. You say, Emil, it's only 1:52. You got 8 minutes. Take 8, as they say. But no. This is the lagniappe section. We're delivering. We're delivering that something extra because we call this Wadat. What does an Asian American think? I'm the aforementioned Asian American. What do we think? Today we're going to talk about the Morro Bay Powerball. That's significant. We'll talk about that straight up at 2 o'clock. We're going to talk about Facebook, of course. I mean, everyone's still buzzing about it. Like, what the heck happened? Filipino American history. I mean, this is the month. Got to talk about it today. We're going to do our news scan, be meditative, talk sports. Did you see the Warriors last night? I was watching that game. I said, oh, this is like some mid-season formed team from like a couple of years ago. And I said, no, that's these Warriors. That's the new. If you're a Warrior fan, get excited. I think they're coming back in a big way. And then, of course, the Giants. And, if we must talk about the Raiders, they're not really ours anymore. They belong to something else. And then the poor 49ers. 49ers. Okay, look, we'll talk about that. All that's coming up. But this is our put in a little plug. Hey, Venmo, Emil-Guillermo. If you want to, contribute, sponsor what we do here. Because we do this out of the goodness of our heart. I know. Is that what's good about it? No. But to share stories that don't ordinarily get the attention they deserve. Like, you're not going to hear this story that I'm going to read now, which is the National Book Awards. The finalists now, I won an American Book Award, which is put out by the Before Columbus Foundation. This is the big one, the National Book Awards. And there's some good people, Asian Americans. Grace M. Cho, she cooks her grandmother's recipes in Tastes Like War, a memoir, exploring her mother's illness and how war, colonialism, and xenophobia live on in her body. And that's fascinating. That was nominated. Others, Covered with Night, Story of Murder and Indigenous Justice in Early America by Nicole Eustace, examines a 1722 murder of an indigenous hunter. A Little Devil in America, Notes in Praise of Black Performance. Poet Hanif Abdurraqib. Hanif. Look, I've just named off 4 finalists. They're 25. And look how diverse it is. I mean, that's something. Some others. Hell of a Book by Jason Mott, joined in the fiction category by two others, Anthony Doerr for Cloud Cuckoo Land and Lauren Groff for Matrix. Bewilderment by Richard Powers. Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fanon Jeffers. In the poetry category, Martin Espada talks about those who drowned in the Rio Grande in his book Floaters. What Noise Against the Cane, Desiree C. Bailey explores the Haitian Revolution, what it means to be a black woman in the United States today. Have you noticed a trend just in the ones that I've read? It's like diversity. They're looking for our stories. They're looking for stories that are not white. In translated literature, Benjamin Labatut's book, When We Cease to Understand the World, among the finalists. Also included Planet of Clay by Samir Yazbek, translated from the Arabic by Larry Price. Follows a girl named Rima during the Syrian Civil War. There's The Legend of Auntie Po, a graphic novel by Xing Yin Kaur, finalist for Young People's Literature. It reimagines the story of Paul Bunyan against the backdrop of race and immigration in the period following the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Now, look, that is an imaginative theme, The Legend of Auntie Po by Xing Yin Kaur. There's also Revolution in Our Time, the Black Panther Party's Promise to the People, also a finalist. 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards presented to the writer and professor Karen Tai Yamashita, the author and librarian Nancy Pearl. So, look, a ton of really Asian Americans are in here. In poetry, Jackie Wang, The Sunflower, Cast a Spell to Save Us from the Void. Hua Nguyen, 1,000 Times You Lose Your Treasure. So, I think it's an exciting time to be a writer. It's an exciting time to be an Asian American writer with stories that haven't been told. And if you're like me and have waited, time to get going, because there's young people and young stories that are not usurping the story of the elders, but there is a generational thing. And here's the thing. Everyone seems to be looking for the next young thing, not the next old thing that looks young, like the old guy with dimples. Not a cool thing. Could be cooler. I'm just saying, now's the time. And I say this to all the different generations of Asian American Pacific Islander Native Hawaiians. The time for our stories is now. So before we get to our basic program, because, 2 p.m. Pacific, this is the Lanyap section, the something extra. They sold the darn lottery ticket. The Powerball jackpot was sold in Morro Bay. And the jackpot on Monday was $699.8 million. God, I don't get out of bed for anything less than $700 million. What's going on? All right, I might make an exception here. Can you imagine if I bought $699 million worth of lottery tickets because I wanted to win? And what if you just happen to have all the tickets except the winning one? Right? Because the winning one was sold in Morro Bay. Where, again, Emil, is Morro Bay? Morro Bay is a coastal city which is described as not quite San Luis Obispo. Keep going. Not quite Santa Barbara. Sorry, not that good. It's north of Santa Barbara, south of Pismo or San Luis Obispo. I get lost. I don't know where Pismo is in that equation. But Morro Bay is described as halfway between LA and San Francisco. Okay, Central Coast, Central Coast. This is where the Filipinos first landed in 1587, October 18th, 1587. And that's why October is Filipino American History Month. Yeah, I mean, there are other reasons too. I mean, my birthday month. Okay. Oh, but it's also Larry Itleong's birthday. It's also Rob Bonta's mother's birthday. Rob Bonta, the first Filipino American Attorney General of California. I like that guy. You know, and I've met him. I've met his mom. His mom was a little cool to me, but you know, she was busy. But October, it's our history month. And what an omen that a lottery ticket worth $699.8 million was sold in Morro Bay, the first landing of Filipinos. Now, I have to explain the story why we aren't called the United States of the Philippines as we should, but it's because the Filipinos, they were the first to step foot in America, but they were deckhands. They were the help. And I mean, if you want to honor the colonial, well, then yeah, they claim it for Spain because they were on the boat of Pedro de Unamuno, and he was sailing for Spain. But if you say, heck with the colonizer, I spit on the colonizer, then honor the people whose feet are right here on American soil first. Filipinos, Morro Bay, October 18th, 1587. I mean, we're still a few days away from October 18th. I'm speaking to you on October 5th, this being show 151. But when I saw Morro Bay, they sold the winning lottery ticket for $698.8 million at an Albertsons, which I think is sometimes called Lucky, right? Remember? Lucky? That was Lucky. For some, I hope it was a Filipino. It doesn't have to be. I hope it was. It'd be good. It'd be good if it were, because then that would really make the analogy historical. But whoever it was, that's fine. Morro Bay. And of course, if you go to my column that I wrote in 2017, if you go to the ALDEF blog now, I link to it. ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. I link to that column where they have a plaque on a rock that says, this is it. This is where they came. And don't you know that rock is now worth its weight in history? Not $699 million, but worth its weight in history. All right, here we are. That's a little beyond 2 o'clock, but that's all right. This is Emil Amok's Takeout. We're live. We're streaming live because it's dangerous that way. This is show number 151. We've done 151 of these things. God, Emil, don't you have anything better to do? This is something better to do. You ought to see what I was doing instead of this. Show number 151. Subtitled, What Does an Asian American Think? What does an Asian American think? WDAAT. We fill the void. We talked a little about Filipino American History Month. It's important. I know we dovetail with Spanish or Hispanic Heritage Month. And I don't know if that's by design. Hispanic Heritage Month is from September 15th to October 15th. I know it's kind of like they split the months. They straddle the 2 months. And the Filipinos come in on October 1st, and it's like, well, I guess it makes sense because my last name is Guillermo, but I don't say Guillermo. I say Guillermo because that's the way the Filipinos say it. So we're perfect for this confluence of heritage, Hispanic heritage, and the Asian American part, the Filipino part, which is Filipino American history. History, not heritage. It's significant because history incorporates all. It's like the big umbrella. Heritage is just like, oh, well, things we inherit. Except stories. We don't always inherit our stories. Sometimes our stories we want to forget. We want to forget the stories. But here we try to remember them. So we do a news scan. What do you think about Facebook? You know, a friend of mine, Charita, she put something down on Facebook. And she said, you know, what do we do with Facebook now? What did we, I mean, Facebook crapped out on us yesterday. And did it strand you? I mean, I do this show on Facebook. I mean, I distribute it to emilguillermo.media and to my Emil Guillermo page. But I also do it on YouTube Live, on the Emil Guillermo channel. So if you were savvy and said, oh, Facebook is down, but if you were smart, you say, oh, well, let's just go to YouTube. We'll find Emil there. I'm sure we'll just like start sniffing out the vegan patties. There is a vegan patties. I think I'll find it. I'm not using regular patties. Fishless fish sauce. But there I was. I did the show on YouTube, and then I put it out, Emil Amok, not live. But if you were seriously doing a business, I mean, Facebook reaches 3.5 billion people. There must have been some companies that lost some money yesterday. Do you think it was like for real? Do you think it was like Facebook, which is under the gun for antitrust laws, under the gun from this whistleblower in Congress? Do you think maybe Facebook was trying to like just shake us up and say, hey, look, you hate us, but you don't hate us as much. I mean, you'll love us more when we just disappear for like 8 hours. And you start cursing everyone for, well, where's Facebook? Which may be the case, but I think that's a bad move. First of all, I don't think Facebook would do anything that's suicidal. I think this is a significant I think someone screwed up. I think someone's got to check the employee roster and see whose name has been left off. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's name's still in there, but someone screwed up because this would not be the time to draw people's attention to Facebook and how much in trouble they are in. So, but my friend Charita was suggesting, what do you do with Facebook now? And my suggestion was maybe instead of regulation, because no one wants regulation, I think, but maybe we need like a citizen oversight, I mean, a real citizen oversight committee, maybe over all of them. Because who is Facebook ultimately responsible to? Not to the United States, not to any, I mean, because it's global. Facebook is, by virtue of being a corporate entity, responsible to its shareholders. And that's it. And that's why everything that the whistleblower said today is, I mean, I like what the whistleblower said. I think what the whistleblower said was important. But the fact is, Facebook was doing whatever a corporate entity is allowed to do, which is make astronomical profits, which is what Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, the phrase she used, saying the company prioritized astronomical profits over the well-being of its users. Well, guess what? Corporate America, that's its goal. Corporate America's goal is not to be nice to people. Corporate America's goal is not to be the best thing for all people in society. Corporate America. And when I worked for when I worked for a tech company, it was pretty damn clear what was important to them. 2 words: shareholder value. And they get you hooked on it because you're working for them. and you want your stock options. Not me, but when I was working for a tech company that failed. And believe me, I did not become rich. I had the opposite. I had reverse stock options or negative stock options. But really, that's the first time I ever heard of shareholder value as a thing. And that is what these startups that grow big, like Facebook, end up being. They end up being beholden solely to the shareholders, solely for those astronomical profits. And if you want to make a company more honest in terms of the people, in terms of society, well, then, it's got to be a nonprofit. It's got to be something else. It's got to be a different kind of entity. And that's why I was happy to see Frances Haugen out there. We need whistleblowers like her because it jolts us into a sense of, what is this thing? I'm here on Facebook now, on some Facebook pages, emilguillermo.media, my Facebook page. I'm on Emil Amok. And the thing is, I use it, for distribution. So people say, oh, yeah, we're on Facebook and this is where we'll find Emil. But I'd rather be with a company that does good rather than a company that screws up, a company that doesn't care, a company that has no values, moral or otherwise. It seems like in those Wall Street Journal articles that have been appearing the last month, and we've talked about them on this show throughout the time that they've been published. How Facebook has like preferred groups of people that they coddle, the white list, how Facebook ends up being used by terrorists and by traffickers, drug dealers, and they don't do anything about it. And then we haven't begun to talk about January 6th and how Facebook pretty much fanned the flames, getting out the word to people who are out there on January 6th at the Capitol. The idea that the algorithm foments hate, violence, division. What do we do about that? How do we regulate this thing that may be beyond regulation? I heard a journalist, opinionist. I'm really a journalist and opinionist, an analyst, commentator, because I'll serve up news and opinion. But there was one guy who said, I heard him today say, Facebook ought to be, if you tell lies, you should be taken off. If you don't say the truth, you should be taken off. Facebook should be responsible, and the people who are putting out these lies should be responsible. And on the one hand, I agree, this shouldn't be for lies. But now who's going to determine that? Who's going to determine what's truth? Now we get into free speech, and now we get into a kind of regulation that the Constitution says, hey, we allow that in our, well, first of all, the First Amendment would not apply to Facebook because it's a private concern. But the principle is strong enough so that if we were strong enough in our values and our beliefs, we'd say, hey, look, we believe in the First Amendment and we believe in protecting that right. But let's find a way so that we can have the truth and we can have freedom to express ourselves in something, social media, Facebook, something like this. I mean, that's where we are right now. How do we impose these values on a private concern? I said, maybe we do this citizen watchdog group. I mean, why isn't it that more internet companies have this sense of responsibility? Because you just don't see it. I mean, it really is. Tech companies, to me, are always a group of mostly guys, but now women from a garage mentality, right? Startup. So it's kind of begins with this siege mentality, us versus them. And all they're interested in is for their technology to make money. Are they interested in customer service? No. Are they interested in consumer? No. Are they interested in labor rights? No. They'll work themselves to death 24 hours if they can become millionaires in the first 12 months. They'll make the sacrifice. But at some point, you have to consider other people. Like, I always hate it when a tech company becomes so big, they don't have decent customer service. Try to get a call into, you name it, X, you name the big tech company. I mean, Amazon has gotten a little better about customer service, but try to get a hold of Google. Try to get a hold of Facebook. It's almost impossible. Everything is DIY or Zendesk, or I wrote to a company today an email, and usually you get the do not reply emails. They say, don't even reply to this email. And then you got to hunt down how to find out how to communicate with them. I got one email back from a company that says, we'll respond in 72 hours. Yeah, everything is instantaneous except the response to a consumer concern. So look, I think we are into a new era with these companies where we have to do something. We have to do something. Now, they were speaking before the Senate Commerce Subcommittee on Consumer Protection. That's probably where all this should begin. And let's just hope, we can get it right. Because, an internet generation is like 4 years. And people are getting hurt. I mean, you heard the testimony about teenage girls, young people, bullying, eating disorders, the algorithm, the divide, the racial divides that exist because of the algorithm that fan the flames and allows you to see just how strange your best friends are and how you didn't really know what they were all about until you saw that anti-vax tweet. So I just think that we got senators like Klobuchar, Ed Markey. We got even Ted Cruz saying they'd support subpoenaing internal documents for further hearings. Hagen said Facebook would still be profitable if it changed its algorithms and didn't do all the nasty stuff that it does, or it tries to say that they are equanimous to all the nasty stuff it does or the nasty results. They just say, hey, it's the algorithm's fault. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Someone's got to take responsibility. Someone's got to take responsibility for all those teenage girls who are thinking about suicide. Are all the other teenagers, isn't it? Not just girls, but eating disorders, suicide ideation among teenage girls, and mental health. That's come up, raised by Frances Haugen, the whistleblower. But imagine that. Haugen said Facebook would still be profitable, but of course, if shareholder value is your only marker, well, why stop at 100 million when you can have 800 million? Or why stop at 3 billion when you can have 10 billion? And at that point, that's when we, the people, have to get serious about regulation. So what's it going to be? I think a citizen panel, a national citizen panel, not among techies, not about, with people, users, or people who, I mean, we need something like an FCC, although this is like 22nd century FCC. Because, man, the FCC is so political. That's the other thing. All this stuff ends up being political. So you got problems on the corporate side, problems on the political side. Facebook can help itself by forming these panels, by forming, look, it's a big outfit. It's not a little teeny outfit in a garage dealing with people, around the world. It's a big corporation now. It's got to figure out how to build a public infrastructure that can regulate itself without outsourcing the regulation to the third world, to people who are looking at all these strange videos that are posted and that no one understands. I mean, if you're in a third world country and you're watching something posted in America, how do they know what's going on? I don't like the way Facebook does things. Right now. But when you're saying this is the only game in town, then that's bad. That's a monopoly. That's what we fight against, right? So I'm thinking about Facebook, but check out the show on YouTube on the Emil Guillermo channel, just in case. I'm just passing it on. And sometimes we post it on Twitter. I saw Biden a lot today, President Biden out there pumping that social spending bill. And it looks like Biden and the progressive Democrats are coming closer. Look, here's the thing. American people are American people, and we need childcare, education, climate change, healthcare. We need all those things. And 3.5 trillion, to say, oh, well, we're going to trim it down to 2.9 trillion or 2.5. Who cares? Look, we're talking about the American people. 3.5 trillion is nothing. And if you save if you go down to 2.5 trillion, you save a little bit, who cares? Donald Trump, when he cut the taxes on the rich and raised the national debt to 287 something trillion, look, it's all play money to these guys. But the analogy to your home budget is not right. Fortunately, our budget is a little bigger for the country than our own personal budgets. So only take that analogy so far, and then understand that sometimes you have to pay to be inclusive, to get the thing or the things we need as a country. I mean, remember, the original goal was not even 3 trillion. It was like 6 trillion to make sure that all of us have something to fall on, a social safety net. And then, of course, that's on top of the real physical infrastructure so that we have something to drive on. So we have, clean water. We have an environment that we're protecting, that we have. Okay, I wouldn't even mention it because, people who listen to the show know that I live in an area where the digital divide is real. We need everyone included on broadband. Otherwise, you want to see how feeling left out is? So, for an Asian American perspective, thank goodness for people like Pramila Jayapal, representative from Seattle or from Washington. She's out there. When you see her, she's an Asian American woman. She's standing there for us. For all of us, not just Asian Americans. She happens to be Asian American. That's good. Let's see. Some other things in the news. Sports. I don't talk about sports really a whole lot because, look, it's one of my addictions. Did you see the Raiders play last night? Man, they looked like crap. I'm glad I had season tickets 20 years ago and not now. But my goodness, I don't know. I can't understand the Raiders. They belong to someone else now. So, no. And the 49ers, all right, this is how far back I go with the 49ers. Kezar Stadium. There I'd be. Underneath the seats. I mean, they're wooden seats. And you could see like the slats for where people put their feet and where people put their butts. And you're underneath the bleachers. And you're like, you can look up. And when the game was really boring, because sometimes the game was, it was the 49ers of the 60s. It didn't cost us anything as kids because we buy Christopher milk, right? In the cartons. Christopher milk, owned by George Christopher, the former mayor of San Francisco. He owned a milk thing. And we would buy the milk and dump it out in the sewer because it was like lousy milk. It wasn't good milk. See, I was kind of vegan before vegan was in. And we dumped it out because there was a coupon on the carton. Before they put missing kids on milk cartons, they put missing football teams. They say, hey, this is a lousy football team, but here, take this carton coupon and go to the game for free, you Christopher milk person. And later on, it was Berkeley Farms. But that's how we went to Kezar. And the 49ers were bad. Bad. And, but then when they got good, right, with Monday, it was like a revelation. I don't have that feeling this year about whether or not they're going to be good. They're just going to be okay. Because Jimmy Garoppolo is hurt and he was lousy to begin with. Trey Lance, maybe he starts picking up and we start getting hope like toward the end of the season. But my fingers are crossed for Trey Lance. I think he has the potential to make it ultimately. If not this year, then next. But he's only played so many football games. He, went to some college where he didn't play that much. But he was good. I'm glad they have him, though, because he's the kind of quarterback the 49ers ultimately need. All right, so football, baseball. And this is a time for baseball. I'm still a big Giants fan. I feel really good about the Giants. Everyone is recognizing them now for being the kind of good team that they are. But I don't think their pitching is as good. Their bullpen is good, but their starting pitching, if Johnny Cueto has an amazing postseason, is if he's back from injury because he was out last couple of weeks, if he has a good final push, if Logan Webb showed that, yeah, he hit that home run on the last day, he looks like he's good. Gausman, oh my God. I love Gausman, but Kevin Gausman is erratic as hell. And gone are the days of Bumgarner when he was good, Matt Cain, and Tim Lincecum. Those are three pitchers that you can send out and say, I'll match you ace for ace. The Giants can't do that on paper with very many teams. But, right, team is team. Together, right, we achieve more, I think is the acronym. So, darn it, 107 wins, all the more home runs than the Willie Mays years, than the Bobby Bonds years. Orange and black. I don't have any orange and black things here in my gong, but I would like to see them play the Cardinals because the Cardinals are weaker than the Dodgers ultimately. But you know, if it's the Dodgers, bring them on. Let's kick the Dodgers' butts. And it'll be interesting for all us California Asian Americans who are baseball fans. All right. That's it for... Oh, one last sports thing. I was watching television last night. The Warriors were on. I thought, oh, this is like a game. Why are they showing games from like 3 years ago? I thought it was like an old game they were playing because it just had that old, dark, you know, like not real life or not current. And those are the current Warriors. It was a preseason game, and they looked like they were in midseason form. And I said to myself, oh, my God, Jordan Poole actually can play. I mean, after like disappointing us all those, you know, early years when he first got into the league, when he wore his glasses and his hair funny, he's a good player. And the Warriors look like they are ready to contend. So, Warrior fans, and I know there are Filipino Warrior fans out there. I know there are Asian American Warrior fans out there. They look good. Preseason, I think the first game, right? They look good. And Klay Thompson isn't even back yet. Even Draymond looks good. He was making shots. For goodness sakes. Draymond and Iguodala's back. Oh, it's going to be a good year for Warrior fans. Okay. Where are we now? Oh, a couple things. A couple news things to mention. After 12 years of running the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins stepping down. Thank goodness. Dr. Francis Collins. It's a he doctor, not a she doctor. Dr. Francis Collins has been responsible for holding up the progress of a modern way of doing science at the premier scientific organization in America. And now that he's stepping down, thank goodness. Thank goodness we don't have to wonder or endure more years of Francis Collins at the helm. He says he believes it's time for new leadership to lead the NIH into the future. Well, it's good because Francis Collins was going backwards. All you have to do is read the Washington Post investigative report on gain of function research that pretty much was controlled by Collins and Fauci in a totally autocratic way and potentially hazardous to the public, because gain of function means to really juice up a virus and make it even more viral to see what it would do, not really being in control of, what happens to it. So, and there was no recourse. I mean, it was the buck stopped with Collins and Fauci, and they pretty much kept it secret until the Washington Post did their big gain of function investigation about a month ago. But check it out. There's a lot of pressure on Collins to go back and live out his days, because his days are not in tune with the times, or his vision of science. He's become born again, which means, I don't know. Well, what are his thoughts on evolution if he's a born again? Just because you play guitar and ride a Harley doesn't make you a good guy. So, Francis Collins, leaving NIH. I mention that because, as you know, I host the PETA podcast. And the PETA podcast has been talking about the need to replace Francis Collins. And now, here is the time. This will open up science, make it less cruel, make it more effective, may open up to modernization of the research practices. It's a good day that Dr. Francis Collins has self-aborted as the director of the National Institutes of Health. I do want to mention, we started talking about one whistleblower, Francis Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower. I do want to mention, tomorrow on the PETA podcast, I have an interview, not with Francis Haugen, but another whistleblower, Dr. Lisa Jones Engel, who is the star source of a big piece. It's in USA Today, the USA Today Network, and the Arizona Republic. You can go online, check it out, talking about the Washington National Primate Research Center and how they leased a facility in Mesa, Arizona, that was in violation of state and federal laws, killed numerous monkeys, and existed as a public hazard to the people in that Arizona community, as well as a hazard to the people who live near Washington, where the Washington National Primate Research Center is. And everywhere were these sick monkeys, because they were developing sick monkeys to use as test media, were sent off for research. Anyway, check that out. I talked to Dr. Lisa Jones Engel on the PETA podcast, releasing tomorrow. One last thing I want to share with you, and that is, do I have one last thing? I think that's it. I think that's it, Emil. Darn it. That is it. So I have this contemplative music going because I find that it calms me down. Because part of this is for me to think about the news, right? Oh, yeah, we're going to do the news scan. Scan the news. News is bad. And you want to jump at it, but part of it is to maybe pause and be somewhat equanimous and think about, what can we do? What can we do better? So I'm just looking at the news. It's all New York Times, all Facebook. Someone sent me a thing saying, hey, it was a meme. Now that Facebook was down, are you happier? Or it said, Facebook's down, America was happy. I know, were we happy? I guess my involvement with Facebook is somewhat limited, only as, in terms of doing this program. But I suppose I just went off to Twitter, went off to YouTube. Another friend said, now that Facebook was down, did you talk to anybody? What did you say to your friends? And I have to admit that I guess I depend on all the digital stuff now during the pandemic. And that this is the way I communicate with everyone out there, whether they want it or not. Incidentally, you can't stop me. So I don't know. I didn't speak to anyone in person except my wife. I've been speaking to her in person for the last 30 some years. So I'll leave you with this. I told a story at this Harvard alumni thing, and I'll tell you how to access the story and see the power of coalitions. I'll talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Oh, I get to see my meditation teacher tomorrow, or at least have a phone call with him tomorrow. All right. Yeah, I mean, this music is here for a purpose, because if you've lasted this long, you know the true lanyap is not at the beginning, it's at the end. It's at the end where, you've traveled this way with me, and I thank you for joining me. And I tell you that, hey, you're good enough. You're worthy. Give yourself a hug. Don't feel shame. And as a kid, I used to always crick my neck like this, like I was somehow ashamed. Don't be ashamed. And if you're Filipino, especially if you're Filipino, don't be ashamed. This month, this is Filipino American National History Month, or just Filipino American History Month, under the auspices of the Filipino American National Historical Society. But this is it. Feel good. Walk through that door of shame toward the door of love. It's all about love. Self-love. In the good way. That's where it begins. That's where you show it first. So thank you for being here. Join me tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter at Emil Amok. Go to amok.com for replays and notes and that kind of thing. Oh, yeah, you can check it out, too, at emilguillermo.media on Facebook. But amok.com is kind of home base. Off the reservation, the Facebook reservation. We're there at amok.com. Email me there, Emil, EMIL, at amok.com. This is the Micro Talk Show of the AAPI, the AAX, and the ALL. Oh, the Micro Talk Show of all? Oh, yeah, all. Emil Guillermo here. As I'm fond of saying, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. Till next time. Mahal. Kita.